Do you have any thoughts, Uncle Sol? Uncle Sol from Lānaʻi. I know you've done fencing, and you know Lanai has a lot of issues as well with the deer.
Well, I think I appreciate listening in on some of your experiences and some of your suggestions. I think the island of Lanai is really an example of the conflict that we've had over decades with an animal that has had no real checks. And we are over 40, 50 years in decline now. We're a smaller island. We don't have running streams. Our watershed is being inundated. It's being eaten away as we speak. And so I think a lot of the ideas that you're talking about and trying to figure out how you might manage an animal like this are going to be ideas that I think you develop as you manage. But for me, bottom line is that the animals have taken over every part of our island, Lanai, to the point that we see them in herds of hundreds to thousands, at a time. Walking across the streets, cars have to wait until they finish crossing, unheard of. So unless, we decide that one, these animals have to have some kind of carrying capacity when they're confined to islands. These are not island animals. And so when you have a population that high, that need to eat every single day, that an island's capacity to feed them is what we are challenged with, because by that act of feeding this animal, we are diminishing our ability to live on Lanai. So when we have no more watershed, unable to recover, our sediment has covered the entire island itself. And what do? It's too late perhaps. So I think we should have paid a little bit more attention to that decades ago. And as a result, we've tried to live with this idea that, oh, it's okay, we're subsistence, gatherers, and we can live on an island with this animal. And no one checked to see that the population was getting out of hand. And then with climate change, I mean, we've had periods of drought for over 10 years at a stretch. And Lanai had animals dead all over the place because we couldn't feed the numbers of animals that the island has to support. And yeah, now we get some rain back and everything seems to be okay. And it's not, so we cannot live with this idea that we will be able to manage them unless you really take care of the population first. And once you've decided what a population base this an island can support, then I think we can talk about how you want to manage them in terms of subsistence food and how you're going to manage all of that over time. But Lanai is critical right now. And that's why, everything you've said, been there, done that, so for me at this point, when the herd size is well over 20, probably nearing 30,000 animals on the island of Lanai, we don't have the luxury of talking about how we're going to create, luxury dining experiences. No, because that only takes care just of a minute population base that for economic reasons, we're going to keep a herd size at 20, 30,000 so that we can feed a few luxury meals. No, it doesn't work that way because the island is going to die. And that is, to me, the more critical part about what we need to do and be serious about. So I think, that's where I'm looking, is that we have to acknowledge. I mean, the most recent survey was done, I think, 2 years ago. And this is by the landowner's own survey, an estimation of population over 20,000. for the island of Lanai. We've seen deer in the island, in the community that we have never ever seen before, ever in my life on Lanai, in places we never seen, in herd sizes we've never seen. And so it's kind of a curiosity. Some people are amazed. Oh wow, we get to watch all these thousands of deer crossing the road, and oh wow, we take photos of them. And I'm thinking, wow. So that's an indication of how we have come to accept this kind of condition, and yet the seriousness of this condition in time is going to be a detriment to the island's ability to support its own people. So, what's more important? I think we got to be serious about that. And I would hold the landowner responsible for this, because the landowner has been part of the problem in helping this population to expand to the point that it becomes a luxury kind of big game trophy hunting experience that is for them, big profit dollars to their island, but for only a few, and for what? For a trophy buck. And in the meantime, the population continues to rise with an island that cannot grow, and we have to feed all of these animals. So yeah, we're in serious condition right now. So I'm more interested in us trying to figure out now how to really manage an island. And first thing is to take down the population. Whatever we determine is a sustainable number in herd size, it has to be achieved immediately. We don't have the luxury of saying we're going to phase this over 10 years, 20 years. No, we've already left it go for 50 years. So we don't have the luxury of time. So if we play that kind of game, then I think that Lanai will be irrecoverable in terms of how we're gonna make water to continue to survive on the island of Lanai. So and that's just my experience on Lanai, and that's where I think we are at now, and we got to be more serious about what we're going to do. So, yeah. And then I hope that we serve as a model for the rest of Maui Nui. Molokaʻi, your island is much bigger than Lanai. You have taller mountains. You have watershed areas that you have had the luxury of for generations. Lanai is not that place. We're in the lee of Maui and Molokaʻi. We get less rain. You talked about the mesic forest. We depend on clouds to make water for our island. And the plants that attract those clouds to make the water are disappearing. So when I had no plants to make water for the island, what do? We go get bottled water. So you see, it's much more serious than I think we have the luxury of time to talk story about. It's already beyond that. And so the landowner needs to be responsible. If they claim that they are owners of 99%, 98% of the island, then they are responsible for the animals that they have on their island, and they are part of the solution, and they cannot shirk that kind of responsibility, okay? And so they need to be held accountable. The state of Hawaii needs to also kick in, because why? Because these animals have had an impact on the ocean resources of which we subsist. So the ocean reefs are being covered with lepo, dirt, mud, continuously. Now our ocean water is always chocolate brown, never used to be. So whose responsibility is that? It's the state. And do they go in and enforce that kind of destruction? No, no, they don't do anything. So you see, so we have to kick in and say, all of the government agencies that have authorities on this kind of condition have to be tough and have to be responsible to making enforcement happen. So when do we start? How long do we have to acknowledge the fact that it's in decline? Well, is 50 years not long enough? So we get another 50 years to just sit on it? No. So I feel that urgency, and that's why I'm expressing myself. But if you do not look at Lanai as a model of destruction from this kind of condition, then you're not going to be free of that same situation. It's just a matter of time that you're going to be in no different a situation than we are right now.
Oh,
Well, I
Kirk.
feel the passion of your story, and it has a lot of weight in what you say there. Because, I mean, what you just said, a model of destruction. Wow, we don't need to see that. And so, helping each other with these two things on a broader front, and obviously, you know, the only, I guess, Hawaii did not get the deer were brought over, but they got them, and that was that guy I mentioned, Jake. They finally found him in a cave by the ocean, a lava tube. They found him, so they got rid of him. But it could have been the next place because people wanted to bring him. So, you know, the situation is ever more serious than you can imagine, and that was just a very moving, to me, story that adds the weight here to where you guys are going. Anything else that I could add at this point? That was really important for me to hear that. Thank you, Sol, for sharing that with us. And I'll be happy to, you know, we talked about an education component at some point. I don't think right now is the right time for that, because the urgency of action in implementing your plan for reduction of numbers seems to be critical. And, you know, you're not going to let it go beyond the subsistence level for people, and it's a different situation there on Lanai. But if it's not started to get going here pretty soon, there's going to be real issues. So,
You know, if I can just add one more comment, is that we had a similar situation in one of our islands in Maui Nui, and that was the island of Kahoʻohalahala. Kahoʻohalahala was the example of total disregard for management of an island. We allow the animals to escalate in populations and numbers far beyond what the island was able to manage. And aside from that, we bombed the crap out of the island, you know, to add to injury, you know. So when Kahoʻohalahala finally decided that it needed to begin to heal the island, they went for full eradication, and we had a lot of concerns about that. But I will say this much, that when given an opportunity to heal and take away all of those kinds of what do you want to call them, agents of destruction and detriment, you know, take them away, the island will heal. And I think Kahoʻohalahala now is a better place than she was 20 years ago, okay? But it's going to take time to recover. So unless we take a look at our own islands in the same manner and implement what we think is necessary so that the island can regain its ability to take care of its people and its resources, then you know, then that's what we must do. So don't forget that Kahoʻohalahala was that place. You know, Lānaʻi is that place now.